Hi, this is Yvonne from Host Relocation. If you're an expat or you know somebody interested in moving to Mexico, follow our channel. We will be posting some interesting videos and useful information to make this journey easier. In this video, you will see several expats that are Host Relocation clients that already decided to make the move to Mexico. They will talk about their fears, their thoughts, and all their life here in Mexico. So just keep watching us.
So anybody can answer this. What was your idea of Mexico before you arrived here? And what have been changed since then?
If I can, I guess, be the first to answer that, if I were to base my opinion of Mexico based off of what friends and family had told me, I would think I was going back to Afghanistan or Iraq. Like, no joke, but it's completely not even remotely like that. Of course, most of it is just fear of what that media pushes. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say that's so true. I was mentioning in our earlier conversations, whenever I brought this up to friends or family or even strangers, the first thing they thought was Mexico. Why Mexico? And they make this face. I'm like, what do you know about Mexico? what do you know? Because I'm very strategic, so I research everything first, and I felt very comfortable with my decision. I wasn't concerned. Personally, I wasn't concerned. I have traveled quite all over the world, so I'm pretty familiar traveling. I know nothing's perfect, no place is perfect. However, I personally didn't have any fears or concerns. It was everyone else's fears and concerns, and I would say just blatant. I would say ignorance, but 13 kilometers, and I start at 5:30 in the morning, and it's dark. I wear my AirPods. I got my watch on. I have my phone with me because there is a whole world out there for people to see, and just you got to go out to explore it yourself.
I knew there were good parts and bad parts about Mexico because I have a lot of Latino friends from all over, but my husband did not. He had the same image of, what he sees in the media, whatever. So funny enough, TikTok was very instrumental for me because I started just sending him stuff of all the beautiful places in Mexico, and it piqued his interest because we were considering Mexico, Spain, and Portugal. And I picked Mexico. I wanted Mexico because it was close to the U.S., that I could get back to family quickly. Financially, it made the best sense, and also the language. We already spoke some Spanish, so. But yeah, TikTok. I just kept sending him all the beautiful places in Mexico, and it convinced him enough to let's go see. And once he got here, and we spent a week here, he was hooked.
I have to say, I'm sorry that you guys spoke, but the whole TikTok thing, that's actually how I started my research.
You see?
Oh, wow.
That was like a plug for TikTok.
Like, did you research, and where did you research?
Facebook. I joined Facebook groups.
Yes, they were fantastic.
Yeah. Yep.
And I had a really weird experience because I had decided to take just a weekend for myself, and I have a girlfriend who's been living here for about 5 years, going on 6 years now. And I just called up and I said, hey, I'm going to come out to Mexico. Now, I did make the mistake of being like, hey, how close are you to Tulum? So not at all. But I'm glad she wasn't. I mean, I really wasn't necessarily looking for a beach situation. But I had lived in Germany for a long time, about 7 years. I'm used to jumping and leaving the country and doing that kind of thing. And so when I came to visit, I had already had the itch. I think we all have had that itch. We were like, I'm ready to go. And I was already in that moment. And came to visit her. I was here for literally 3 days. And I had already decided, and she was instrumental in helping me find a year. And she helped me find a place to live and the school. And one of the major things for me was just the immense amount of stress I was feeling trying to get my son to school every day. It was 45 minutes in one direction and then an hour plus, maybe hour 15 to get home. Like every day was a struggle. And now it's a 10-minute ride. With nobody. With no reason. I got a couple of topes, and listen, when you get to the tope part, I mean, ooh.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't line those times. Right?
That's the first word you know.
That was my first word that I learned. Yeah, but yeah, it was just a moment when I went, oh, yeah, this is possible. And just like you said, coming home with your family as well. the saddest thing for me was I lived in my grandmother died, and I needed to get home. I missed her for like 1 hour, and it was absolutely heartbreaking. I thought if I leave again, I have to be able to get home. I can't be so far away. This was an amazing decision.
So for me, my impressions of Mexico, I grew up in Texas and my grandparents lived in El Paso when I was little. And so I spent time in Chihuahua and Juarez and going back and forth across the border when all you had to do was flash your driver's license. I won't date myself, but so I had more of a loving relationship with Mexico. I had friends that loved Mexico, that traveled to Mexico. I had family that did too. And so when I decided on Mexico, it was ultimately the last place we looked. We considered Panama, Nicaragua, Ecuador, Portugal, Spain, so even the Middle East, like Dubai. But in the end, Mexico is right down the road for me, so I drive back a couple of times a year. I can see my older children, and to me it was always a love relationship. It was not ever hate or fear. The media portrays it that way, but I mean that's kind of what the media's job is. So,
And how do you feel driving several times a year? Because you drive back and forth.
the roads have drastically improved in 7 years. I stick to the toll roads when they happen, and honestly, I would say only about the last 30 minutes is when I get a little anxious, and that's when I'm going through Nuevo León, around Nuevo Laredo. But other than that, and I honestly have not had any problems.
Okay, so next, what were your biggest fears? Like, besides all the media, meaning about maybe culturally talking, like, what were your biggest fears before you arrived?
My biggest fear was not being able to communicate with not knowing the language. But we've learned that people are so nice and so patient. So it's not that big of a deal we're gonna learn Spanish, but it wasn't as big of a deal as I initially thought it was gonna be, that we didn't know the language.
Yeah, here the people is very patient.
Yeah.
People are very, very kind.
Yeah, I wanted to add on to that. So my biggest fear was that. But honestly, my primary fear is I came here alone. I did bring my cat, I can tell you that. Is that it was making friends.
Yes.
And meeting people. Because I was told that, it's different. You don't have a culture, I don't know the culture, I don't speak the language, and how you have a immersive conversation and build a bond if you don't speak the language. And I'm a very social person. So, oh my gosh, that has completely been the opposite of my experience. I am invited to parties, even in the grocery stores. Okay? I'm invited to dinners. My weekends are booked. I'm not kidding. I'm being booked weeks in advance now. I just was in Mexico City by invitation. I spent the weekend there. It was fantastic. So I'm busier than I've ever been. And not only that, because we mentioned earlier, the money, you can do more higher quality of life. I'm able to go out more.
Yes.
I'm able to go to restaurants more often. I'm able to travel more often. So that fear was the only fear I had, and it's eliminated. In fact, my only fear is I don't have time for myself anymore. But yeah, so that was it for me. But yeah, the language, as far as you said, I am learning as well, a little at a time. And I've noticed that everyone here, as far as, I hadn't had any bad experience, okay? Not a negative experience, excuse me. They're very helpful. If you try, they try. It turns out, however, we're in an area where a lot of people are very educated. And I've noticed almost every single one speaks English, but they're afraid to speak it just as I'm afraid to speak the few words I know in Spanish. So I've had any problems communicating at all, except with the Amazon delivery person.
I'd like to work on that too, talk about education for my son. He's the main reason for being here, and that was the fear that I had. He's going to show up in the school, and I know this is because I went to school in America. I was afraid, oh my gosh, what if the kids aren't nice to him? What if they single him out? I mean, he's a very tall little brown boy. He's 7 years old, he's in the 3rd grade. He has locks. You don't see a lot of locks around here. So immediately my mama bear was out like, don't touch his hair, don't. And people have been just like super nice to the kids. I had to tell the story. He used to have an actual physical reaction to heights, like shaking. He gets up to the zip line in the neighborhood. This is so cool. The kids who didn't speak any English, one of them did. They all asked, "How do you say you can do it in English?" All these kids are cheering him on, so he would do it. I'm so sorry. I've never had that happen in the States.
That is beautiful.
Kids aren't that nice. But they were just, they were cheering him on and high-fiving him and just supportive. He's made so many great friends. And, and racism is an issue. That's something that I consider. And every time I go anywhere, I have to ask, is it okay if I show up? I don't have. And it's not an issue.
Right.
It's like, nobody cares. It's not even like...
We have people from all
Everywhere.
colors, races, combinations. So
It's almost, it's not even an issue of it's anti-racist. Nobody cares. We're just
You can live.
brown people, and you don't feel the weight of that when you walk
I
around.
was telling him that on the drive here, the same thing. So
You don't feel it.
Yeah.
And it's palpable for people of color.
your son, too.
Yeah, it's
Great for your
wonderful.
son.
Yeah,
To
it
be
doesn't feel it.
I guess if I can add to that and touch on it just a little bit, I know that was a big concern for me as far as when we started looking at moving outside of the U.S. is like not necessarily how am I going to be treated, because I know for the most part I look pretty racially ambiguous, so I can, as long as I keep my mouth shut, I can blend in pretty much wherever I go. But I was more so concerned about like, okay, how is my wife going to be treated? How are people going to treat her? That's more the concern to me versus my own. How are people going to treat me? Because I can just deal with stuff. But just like you had said, and just like my wife had said, y'all haven't really had that concern to deal with. And for me, that's fantastic.
But as I started researching with YouTube, and I actually started corresponding with people on YouTube, and that's how I met Vaughn through a very from a person that really lived here. She's lived here for 7 years or something like that. So she was very educated. She was a teacher, so when she explained things, it was very clear and I could understand her. I was like, oh, she's so easy to understand.
Wonderful.
Anyway, so yeah, and then she, I built a rapport with her, and then she recommended Vaughn, which was one of the best things that ever happened to us here in Mexico. Yvonne has
And
just
the whole
been,
team.
I mean, just always there, yeah, and knows what she's doing, yes. But anyway, so it's interesting to hear, the different backgrounds, because fortunately I never really experienced that.
It's
And
very
also,
unique.
do you have more Mexican friends or people from their own country?
I have more Mexican friends.
More Mexican friends,
Yeah.
definitely.
And they have been so welcoming. But we have made so many Mexican friends, and they have been so welcoming. I've already gone to a Mexican wedding. I've gone to a Mexican baby shower, a Mexican baby reveal.
You must bring good gifts.
Like it's I've experienced so much because of my friends, and they always go out of their way to make me feel welcome, comfortable.
It's weird at first. Isn't
They're
it? You're like,
always available.
Just put your-
I'll send them a picture of a menu item and say, "What is this?" And they'll, "Oh, this is what you need to order. You're gonna love this." Blah, blah. They are so incredibly wonderful, and that has been the greatest thing that has helped me transition to a life here in Mexico. Has been the friends that I've made here in Mexico. And like you said, my calendar is full every weekend.
Very international city with all of the aeronautics and automotive industry. So there are so many people coming here to work. India,
Japan.
Pakistan, Korea. Yeah, so they're from all over. So it's really a lovely community.
That's a very good point, by the way.
It's interesting because you know people from all around the world, and it's very nice for everybody. Me as Mexican as well. I've never had the experience to meet so many people until I started with Host Relocation, but I meet people every week. So yeah, it's very interesting also.
I came to visit my friend. So we work in the live event industry. So we do LED walls in the whole nine. And with that, I walked into, was it Chedraui, this grocery store?
Uh-huh.
Chedraui.
Dairy Select?
That's
That
Oh
LED
my
wall in
goodness,
the dark,
fancy.
I was
There's parking for your dogs outside.
I said, you stop playing me.
And that's normal. That's not even the top 10 store.
That's what I'm saying.
That was-
I was like, people say, oh, what are you getting? I'm like, you have no idea. You haven't even scratched it. Target? Target? Sit down. Sit down. You have no idea.
I was told Selecto was like an upscale Walmart. And I was like, are you kidding me? I walked in, it was like a Whole Foods.
It's like,
And there's more, and there's better stores, and even better. And they're like, wait, we don't even have these.
yeah.
My favorite was the carousel, the wine carousel, that you put a glass
I
and then it
know.
turns, the next one. Oh, I was like,
People don't have an idea. They,
Yeah.
it's like they just don't have an idea. Like that's why the first time I went grocery shopping, I was telling you all in the car. I get my meals delivered now because higher quality of life. Okay, but the first time I went grocery shopping is the first week I was here. I went to Selecto. Beautiful.
That's the place.
I walked out with 3 big bags because they don't. By the way, no plastic. They don't have plastic bags here
At all.
So you buy your tote, or like we have, like they have at Whole Foods, or
Bring
you
your tote from
one,
home,
bring
or
it from
forget
home.
it, and buy another
And
one.
they're cheap. But I had three big bags. I'm like, how did I just spend 220 converted to 220 US dollars? And I was like, John, you're not doing something right. And I said, wait, look at all the rosé. All the rosé, all the champagne, all the brie, all the nice stuff. And I was like, I don't even eat like that at home for that amount of money.
Yes, that'll.
But I've gotten better at it now. But again, the shopping here, if you're into shopping, if you're into food, or if you're into clothing, or in anything, you can get anything and more. It's literally phenomenal.
For fellow Texans, HEB is here.
Yes. Yep.
And by the way, last time a client was videotaping in HEB because she was so excited
Yeah.
on having
Can't
an
do
HEB
that.
Queretaro, and we were like, security says you cannot videotape yourself.
So
But
when we first moved here, we were staying in Zakia in an Airbnb. And we went to La Comer, out in like the Overfood area. We were like blown away. So like we had seen some other YouTube videos where people were stopped from recording. So I'm like sneaking and taking pictures, taking pictures and everything. And the same thing when we went to Queretaro in Queretaro, where we live now. Like I was completely blown away. And like seeing that they actually sell like dry aged beef there too. I'm like,
Did you see that? It's amazing.
Are you
And the
serious?
fruits and
And the
vegetables are
seafood.
stacked so beautifully.
Have you been to the 4th floor of Liverpool?
Yes.
I have not. Really?
I didn't know there was 4 floors.
Yes, yes.
I didn't even know it had 4 floors.
I know 4th floor is gourmet, the gourmet food, and they've got a wine bar. And
Oh my God.
Because I
Friday night.
Go on the 4th floor.
Yes, you can get
sushi and
tapas.
tapas and wine.
Again, I only have that where I live. Fort Lauderdale has everything, but it doesn't have that. Even Miami, which
I want to say something about the climate. The biggest,
Yes,
people saying
amazing.
what you thought about Mexico before you got here. And I'd been to Mexico before, and I wasn't really too concerned about the safety and everything, but I was concerned about the climate because I was living in St. Pete, Florida, and we had just gotten there, and I thought I was okay with hot and humid, but I was not okay with hot and humid.
Yeah.
And so something happened to me at work also, and so I made that decision out of here. Okay. So I looked at all these different places too. I was looking at Portugal, looking at Ecuador, looking at these places that had cities up in a mountain. You know, Boquete. You know, I think it's in Panama and Cuenca in Ecuador and Porto and stuff. Because I'm not a beach person, so I didn't care about that. So then somebody said something about the Central Highlands of Mexico, and I think a lot of people do not know about it because we all go to Cancun and Puerto Vallarta and everything on the coast, and people don't realize there's a whole area of Mexico that has unbelievable climate. We have no air conditioning here, and we have no heat because you really don't need either one. You put on a blanket for a couple of weeks, or you put on a fan for a couple of weeks. Otherwise, it's really great here all the time. So you can imagine, financially, that is huge because we don't have these utility bills that we have, even in different parts of Mexico. So,
Generally, every day I love Mexico. I wake up and I look at this beautiful blue sky and the jacarandas trees are blooming, and I live in Queretaro, which is kind of like living in a park. You talked about a lack of green spaces, but Queretaro is like one big green space. And in general, don't find many things I don't like about Querétaro or Mexico.
So I really had to think hard about what I don't like about Querétaro, because for the most part, everything is really great. But number one is the traffic. If you do not like to be stuck in traffic or drive in traffic, then that's going to be a challenge. Although there is some construction right now, so it's heavier than usual. The second thing was things in the United States sometimes are run a little bit more efficient. So things, they run quickly, they run smoothly. Here, you have to have a lot of patience. You have to work on that patience every single day, and just know that you are not on US time anymore. You're on Mexico time, and you got to just kind of chill. Things will happen, but at their own pace, not at the pace we want. And then the third thing, this is going to probably be different for a lot of people. I had the hardest time going grocery shopping because I didn't know the brands. So I couldn't find things that I'm used to getting, and I really struggled with fun because I would go into Publix, I knew the exact aisle I had to go to, or but here I'm roaming up and down aisles, everything looks so different. So that was really a challenge for me. I'm starting to get used to it now, but it was frustrating. So that was it. Those are the three things that I could think of.
When we first went grocery shopping, it took us 3 hours to grocery shop because, everything was in Spanish. So it's like, okay, take a deep breath, looked at all the items, and so now it's quick because we know.
That's why they start with the wine section first.
See, you're right.
They start with the wine section. So the biggest thing, I really am so grateful every morning I wake up here. And every day I'm like, I still have to pinch myself because it's been such a great experience thus far. However, the thing that my allergies, but I've adapted. It's been took about a month to adapt. With not having air conditioning from Florida, I was inside air conditioning and the windows open, and we are in the high desert region, so we get the dust. But I've adapted to that, so I'm okay, as you can tell. But again, I would say the biggest thing was the sidewalks, for sure.
So what would you say, just to finish this video, to the people that is like afraid, that they are thinking about it, that they are doubting about it, come to Mexico? What would you say to them?
The world is huge. Mexico is an amazing place. I know we're joking like nobody else. You get to that, we love it here. We want to get you, but really, we want to get emotional.
Go someplace else.
I mean, it's so wonderful. You want to kind of keep it as pure as possible in the sense that you don't want people coming.
Sorry for the YouTubers.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But that because I've heard this silly story, people saying, "I wish there were more McDonald's." Baby, what do you mean?
Right.
Why would you even open your mouth to say that? That's kind of silly.
And we have a Denny's in case they need one.
And a Denny's and an IHOP, and it's
And Chuck E. Cheese's.
right? There's so much here for you to have, but if you have that idea that you need to have your world just
A duplicate.
duplicate picked up and dropped down here.
This is not the place for
This is
you.
not the place for that, and it's a privilege for us to be able
Absolutely.
to move around and see other places and experience other places. I probably would have never met any of you guys had I stayed where I was. And we're just from all over the place, and even though we lived in Florida, when whatever running,
Three of us from Florida.
right? When I'm gonna run into you guys, and I'm sitting here with you on this beautiful tree.
Isn't it amazing? Isn't life strange?
It's an incredible situation. So yeah,
Despite all the haters, we made it.
we packed our bags.
One of the biggest things that I absolutely love about this country so far is that the golden rule is something that actually applies here. Like people treat people the way they want to be treated. Like, yeah, it gets preached all over the world, in certain countries, this and that or whatever. But here it's like it actually sticks. You treat somebody with kindness, boom, it's going to be returned to you. I love that. I absolutely love it.
Outside of your own country is that not only the research and the due diligence, but acceptance. That's a huge thing. And some things you won't understand in the beginning, and it's okay. It's okay if you don't understand. Accept it and move with it, and as you move with it, the understanding will come.
Go with the flow. Go with the flow.
It's all good. It's all good.
And for people that are thinking of coming, be prepared to get a lot of negative comments from friends and family, and just be prepared for that, because I know that I've spoken to a few people, and some of the members of their family were not very supportive of our decision. But like you said, don't live your life for somebody else.
Yes.
We have one life, and we got to live it for ourselves. you know, and just be prepared because you're going to get some pushback and negativity from comments from family and friends. Just be prepared to answer those.
If I heard
Facts.
one per se, I'll pray for you that you'll be safe.
When I came here, I had no fear in coming here. My experience is not the same. People were encouraging. They didn't want me to move. It wasn't just that I'm moving to Mexico. They just didn't want me to move. But there wasn't that kind of fear or hate towards Mexico when I moved here 7 years ago. And now I can't imagine going back, but not for these reasons, but just because my life here is so nice. I have wonderful friends. My 16-year-old teenager still gives me a hug. He will greet Yvonne and give her a hug. He will look an adult in the eyes and say, hello, how are you? Nice to see you. And I don't want that to be taken away from him in the U.S., you know.
It's genuine. Sometimes from the States you're going, okay,
What do you want?
what do you want? What's the deal? It is genuine. And that's why I talked about
So
the Aloha
inspirational.
spirit. The Aloha spirit is genuine. It's the same. Yeah.
What Lady was talking about, whenever we drove down a couple weeks ago, this was amid like all this stuff that happened in Matamoros and some other stuff that was on the mainstream media for the U.S. We drove roads about, oh my God, don't go to Mexico. It's so dangerous.
Yeah.
You're gonna die.
That's
We're
very
enjoying here a coffee in a lovely
Yeah.
weather.
Beautiful weather.
So basically, you know, if you have any questions, just let us know. There's going to be our information on the bottom of the video. So thank you everybody for
Thank you,
coming.
Yvonne.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
for
Yvonne.
the wonderful experiences and thoughts and ideas. So I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Adios.
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 Hasta luego.
Nos vemos.